and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new YouTube channel, She Does Bushcraft. I'm Eva, and today's first video is going to be all about getting to know me whilst we take part in a lovely bushcraft solo camp. I'm here in the stunning North Wales, one of my favourite places in the entire world, and I'm super excited to finally share my biggest passion with you all, and that's bushcraft. So let's get to it. Along today is the Wales coastal path. I'm just doing a short section so that I have enough daylight to set up my camp because it is early January. Temperature today is about 5 degrees, so I've got loads of warm layers on, but I reckon it feels more like 8 or 9. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit sweaty already, and my bag is heavy. I am absolutely not an ultralight packer. I think most people in the bushcraft world would feel similar. I've got wool layers, I've got my knife, I've got my spoon carving kit. Yeah, if you're looking for ultralight backpacking tips, I am not the girl for you. I'm going to be walking about 7 miles towards Aberdyfi, and there's a stretch of woodland there, which I'm hoping I'll be able to find a nice spot to set up a tarp and get a fire going this evening. Okay, so I've just stopped for some lunch before the next massive hill that I can see on the horizon. If you're interested, it's hard-boiled egg, elite protein-filled snack, some reduced hummus and some sea salt crackers. Yeah, great lunch. Very excited for that. But I thought before I shared any more about sort of the adventure or answered any other questions, I thought I'd get into how I got into bushcraft and sort of what my bushcraft journey has looked like up until now, because it's a fairly unique story. So I guess I'll go back to, well, I was in the Scouts as a kid, so I absolutely loved being outside. I think I joined Scouts at 12 and then went all the way up to 18 and then left, went to uni and kind of didn't do anything like that for a number of years. I went to uni and then I started in the NHS, so I used to be an NHS project manager and I did that job for about 3 years. But while I was doing that job, I started sharing a little bit on my Instagram about sort of wild camping, solo hiking, and yeah, sort of started to reignite that love for the outdoors a little bit more. And through sharing those bits and pieces online, I got approached by Channel 4 back in, I think it was the June of 2022. And they basically said they were recruiting cast members for their new survival TV show. And would I like to come and interview for it? I actually said no to begin with. I was applying for a new job, I was in the process of buying a house. They couldn't tell me much about what the show entailed, so I was like, well, it seems like a lot of effort and work to go down to London to interview. And to cut a long story short, I was recontacted and they said they'd struggled to cast women. They could tell me that the show was in Canada. It was called Alone. So yeah, they told me what the show was about and they told me it would be a free trip to Canada. And I thought, okay, screw it. I was on a 0-hour contract with the NHS, which meant I could take some time off. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll go to Canada. I couldn't remember anything I'd learnt in Scouts, but I'm quite a say yes kind of person. So in the August, I flew to Canada. We had a week of mostly camera training, a few little bits and pieces of bushcraft type stuff, like these berries are poisonous, here's how to fell a tree, here's how to tourniquet your arm if you fall on your knife or whatever. But it was very light touch. I cannot stress enough how little I knew what I was doing. And if you watch the programme, you will see the first episode is basically a montage of me unable to light a fire for like the best part of 2 days. Anyway, I lasted on Alone for 23 days. So it was 23 days of foraging and hunting, living under a shelter that I'd built, and being completely and utterly alone. There was no camera crew, so it was all self-filmed, and I'll get more into that experience in another video, but it was equal parts like incredible and really traumatic. I can't stress enough how much the human brain doesn't like being on its own for that amount of time. And I get people tell me all the time when I tell them this story, like, oh, I love being on my own, I'm an introvert, and I'm like, I am also an introvert, but when you are on your own, there's wild animals around, you haven't eaten for days at a time, and you don't have anything to distract you. We weren't allowed books or pens and paper or music, or obviously no phones or anything like that. It does fairly scary things to your mind. But yeah, I returned back from that experience back to a life which kind of felt like it wasn't mine anymore. I was in a relationship I wasn't happy in, I was in a job I wasn't happy in, everything just felt wrong. So within the next sort of 6 months, I left the NHS, I left my relationship, and I completely started over. And I began retraining as an outdoor instructor. So since the end of 2022, I've been on a journey from sort of the corporate world in the NHS to now being a content creator, and I own my own business. So I now run bushcraft events for my own not-for-profit, which is called Wilder Horizons CIC. And as corny as it sounds, I really do feel like it is my calling in life. I love the outdoors and I love hiking, and I still do some long distance hiking, but bushcraft for me is like my absolute passion. I think it's accessible for nearly everyone. It's more about nature connection than just like getting outside and like dominating a hillside or a mountainside. And yeah, I love it. I've spent the last couple of years sort of really deep diving into a lot of different skills, and I've found that primitive bushcraft specifically is sort of where my heart lies. So yeah, if you want to stick around on this page, that's kind of the sort of stuff I'm going to be diving into. It's going to be the real primitive stuff, you know, bow drills and even more primitive firelighting, creating clothing from complete scratch. I'm on a journey at the moment of creating a full set of kit out of buckskin and felt and spinning my own yarn, ready for an expedition I'm doing to Sweden in September, which I'll go into more detail about at some point. But yeah, that's me. Sort of, you know, 3 years ago, I'd done next to no real bushcraft apart from a bit in Scouts. I was in the corporate world, and now here I am sort of in the thick of it, but I'm having fun and I'm really excited to be sharing my passion and my skill set with you guys on this channel. So yeah, I'm going to eat my lunch and then we'll get going on our walk a little bit further, and yeah, get camp set up before the sun goes down. I'm here, finally here at my campsite for the night. That last section was a little bit spicier than I'd anticipated. The right of way that I'd been following was blocked off by a fallen tree, so I had to deviate through a farm, and there was a farm dog trying to bite my ankles. But I made it out in one piece and I'm here. The weather is holding, which is really nice news. The bad news is that the section of woodland that I wanted to camp in is at a much steeper angle than I had anticipated. So I'm not down in the woodland like I'd hoped for, but the spot that I have come and found is super nice. So I'll show you it here. This is where I am. You can see the estuary. Hopefully going to be a really nice sunset over here. I'm planning on setting my tarp up between the two trees behind me. So a little bit more exposed than maybe I would have wanted in an ideal situation. But yeah, the slope in the woodland was too steep, and because we're due a bit of rain later on, I don't want to be on a steep slope with all the water from above washing down underneath me. I think the first port of call is to get the tarp up, and then I can collect a load of firewood so that that can keep dry if and when the rain arrives. Okay, so as you can see behind me, I have the tarp up. It is a little bit windy here, but I think I'm protected from most of the wind because I am in a sort of a small little valley, especially on the side that the wind is coming from, which is nice. So the next job that I need to get done before dark is to collect a load of firewood. It has been pretty wet recently. We had like full-on torrential rain last night, but I'm sure I can still find a fair amount of dry wood. There's a lot of sort of dead standing trees around here, which will be perfect. So yeah, that is the next job. It's starting to get a little bit darker, I don't know if you can tell on camera, and there was a little sort of spattering of rain that came through just as the tarp was going up. So I need to get a bit of a move on. I'm feeling pretty hungry, but I can't eat dinner or anything else until I've got the fire going anyway. So yeah, fire it is, and then food, and then we'll see if there's any daylight left and what the evening holds. So it is time to get our fire going finally, and this is always my favourite part of any expedition or any workshop that I run. To give myself the best chance of getting the fire going, considering it has been so wet and a lot of the wood is quite damp, I'm going to make what we call a feather stick. So that means splitting this dry, stick down the middle and then down into quarters, and then creating what we call feathers out of the wood. And that'll give me nice dry shavings of wood to put a spark onto from my ferro rod, which is what I brought today, and get the fire going. So that is the plan, that's what we're going to do, and then we can get our dinner on. So as you can hopefully see, I've created like an angle. It's not quite a right angle, it's slightly wider than that, along the top of this piece of wood. And that angle is now really good for creating those feathers that I was just talking about. The wood is really nice and dry in the middle, which is what I was hoping for. And it's not too punky either, which means it's not decomposed sort of beyond use. So yeah, feeling confident about this piece, really happy. Okay, so we've got sort of an okay-ish fire stick going here. I probably could have done with sharpening my knife before I came out because a few of them have been sort of pinging off. But this should hopefully be good enough to get our fire going. The wood, like I said, is super dry, and I've also got a little collection of extra curls which sort of came off as I was creating the stick. So the next step we're going to do is place all of this onto our fire lay, which I've got down here. And this is a few dry dead sticks. This is hawthorn, and then on top here I've got some really dead, really dry gorse, just to sort of raise my initial fire off the ground, and something fluffy like the gorse will allow some oxygen to get underneath. So I'm going to place all of that on top like so, and then I'm going to take my ferro rod and I'm going to place this right on top just like so. Initial flame, which is wonderful, and then we want to fairly quickly start getting some really tiny bits on. So I've got my fire going, pretty pleased with how long that took me. The next step is obviously to keep it going and then sort of bring that flame down a little bit so that it's good to cook on. Dinner tonight is going to be mushroom soup, which I've got some dehydrated field mushrooms here that I foraged for, I think back in October, October it says, October 2025. Mixing with my dried mushrooms, I've got garlic powder, salt and herbs, so I've got some flour to make some bread and cook over the fire. So for the bread, I just brought a bag of plain flour with me, and I've added some water, and now it's become this dough. And all I'll do with that is I'm going to wrap it around a stick and cook it over the fire. So I'll have soup and bread for dinner. I've got a lovely beer on the go, and yeah, just feeling like it's been a really successful, really brilliant day. Bread cooking nicely. So, I finished my dinner. I managed to finish my beer by the fire, and now, I don't know if you can hear it on the tarp, but the rain is here. It's about 6:30 in the evening, but it's obviously been dark for a couple of hours already. And yeah, feeling nice and snug under the tarp. It's doing its job. I've got my mega sleeping bag. I've filled up my Nalgene with hot water that I put on the fire at the last minute, which was definitely a good idea because I have forgotten my dry socks. So yeah, my only socks are kind of damp from today. But apart from that, it has been an absolutely epic day and magical evening, to be honest. Today has been everything I hoped it would be, and this evening was really, really, really nice. And it just feels so good to be out and doing the things I love already on the 7th of January, starting the year off the way that I want to continue it. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I'm going to stop it here because all I'm doing in the morning is getting up, packing up and going back home. But yeah, if you've made it this far, I just want to say a massive thank you. Let me know in the comments if you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to see more of, and I'll see you back here at She Does Bushcraft for episode 2. Bye!